Hello everyone, it's me, Eclectic White Witch. I decided to shoot another video for you guys. Why not? So this video is going to be about how to perform a successful ritual. I figured why not? I just finished making the spell video, so I figured why not make a video on how to perform a successful ritual. So, again, there's a lot of things that go into ritual work and magical workings and stuff like this, but this is my basic interpretation and guideline, outline, whatever, on how I personally do it every single time. So I hope you guys can benefit from my experiences and from this video. So if you want to know how to perform a successful ritual, then feel free to keep watching. Okay, so some things to keep in mind before you actually perform your ritual. And these are just some things to think about before you decide to actually do it, So these are like the pre-steps. Okay. Number one, determine why you want to conduct this ritual. Make sure your intent is clear. Two, determine how you may want to perform your ritual, like write words that you may want to use during your invocation or other things. Like basically try to have an idea of how you want things to go. Now obviously the more experienced you are in performing rituals in general, it's going to become easier. But if this is like your first time ever doing it, at least have an idea of how you may want things to go. 3. Decide when you may want to do the ritual. Decide, if you may want it on a specific lunar phase or a specific pagan holiday, like on a Sabbath, or, is there a specific hour of the day or night? Definitely keep that in mind because timing can actually help aid in your ritual work. I actually have a video on how to work with the lunar phases and time correspondences. Have a video on that. If you haven't seen it, definitely feel free to check it out because it will definitely help you with this video. Okay. And the fourth thing to keep in mind is decide where you may want to do your ritual. Is there a place that will make sure you're undisturbed? Is there a place that's safe for you to do this? Is there a place that, you feel more connected to that's better, So definitely keep all those things in mind. Okay, now these are the actual steps. I actually will be looking and referring to this. This is my steps on how to perform a ritual. It's in my grimoire, Book Shadows. I actually showed this page to you guys in my flip through of my grimoire. And then this is how to call the quarters and stuff like that, which I'll go over too. So if you guys haven't checked it out, feel free to if you haven't already. But I'm just gonna get started on these steps. Here's some things to keep in mind beforehand of actually doing your actual ritual. Keep in mind, of course, the Witch's Reed, the Law of Three, and that, of course, there's always strength in numbers as opposed to working alone. Now, I'm a solitary witch, so I do things mostly alone. But if you do work with others, there is more strength in numbers, like to aid with your ritual work. Okay, now here's the actual steps. I would say there's basically 15 steps to do to have a successful ritual. Now, of course, this varies with other people and different things depending on what type of ritual you're doing, but this is just, again, my take on it. Okay. So the very, 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 very first step is to make sure you cleanse your space and yourself. Like wherever you decide to do your ritual, before you do anything like casting your circle or anything like that, make sure you cleanse the space. You can use charged full moon water or holy water, whatever. Talismans, herbs, incense, oils, candle work, blessings, anything like that. Just make sure you cleanse your ritual space and yourself as well. That's very important. The second thing to do is to cast your circle. Now, this is a whole process within itself to cast your circle. So I'm not going to go too much into that. That will probably be a separate video, but the very second step is to cast your circle. So you can establish your border, with either candles or salt, crystals, gemstones, herbs, anything that really speaks to you. And depending on your actual ritual working, it may change, but the second step is to generally cast your circle. The third step, I would say, this varies with different people, like I said, but these are just my steps. Call upon spirit, invoke and welcome. Call upon the god and goddess, give blessings or offerings, dedications, things like that. The fifth step would be to call upon the elements and the quarters. Some people like to call the elements and quarters first and then spirit. I call spirit first, then the god and goddess, and then the elements. That's just me. Now, when you're calling and dismissing the elements and quarters, basically what you're doing is you're invoking each point of your circle. I'm going to draw a picture real quick so you guys can have an idea what I'm looking at. Okay, this is a very shitty drawing. I literally just took 10 seconds. But what you're doing is when you're calling your quarters or your elements, this is how it's going to look. Earth is associated with north. Fire is going to be south. Air is going to be east. And water is going to be west. And then spirit is generally in the center. When you're calling your elements, you're going to be, invoking each of these quarters because, it's caught up in fourths. And that's what that is. You're basically invoking them to watch your ritual rite, for them to protect your circle and to witness it. That's what you're basically doing. And you can say it as poetic or beautiful or as simple. You can say it in rhyme. There's many different methods and ways you can invoke calling the elements, the watchtowers, the quarters, whatever you may want to call it. But after you do that, the next thing you want to do is call upon your spirit guide or your guardians, stuff like that. Like I said, your spirit guides, deceased ancestors, so maybe a past relative that you work with. For me, it's my great-grandmother. Totem spirit guides, deceased familiars, things like that. The seventh step would be, after you've done all that, would be to ground and center yourself within the circle. Meditate. This is a very important step. I like to do this before the next step, which is the spell casting. I find it has helped me tremendously. And I feel like I could pick up a lot more that way. I like to do it before I do the actual spell or invocations because I feel it's best to do it after you've called upon and casted your circle and all that stuff because it's the very beginning. And usually if you do it towards the end, you may feel kind of drained, and this kind of when you ground yourself, it kind of revamps you, it kind of gives you more energy and stuff like that, so that's what works best with me. Okay, the next step, like I said, it's going to be spell casting. This is optional, it's not required, but if you are doing a spell, this is the best time to do it, basically in the middle, the very middle of doing everything. I like to do it again after I centered and ground myself. That's just what works better for me. So if it's about raising energy or banishing, any specific action that you're going to be doing within the circle, do it then. Okay. Now the ninth step is after you're done doing your spell work, spell casting. This is the cakes and ale proportion. Now this is this is usually done with Wiccans. So if you're not Wiccan, you're a pagan, this is optional. But the general thing is after you're done doing your ritual and stuff like that, you have something to eat and something to drink. And you say the words you may say, may you never go hungry, may you never go thirsty. So anything that you consume, this is what you do after your spell casting. Now, after you've eaten and done your, spell casting, I believe this is the best time to meditate. It varies from person to person and the situation. I like to do this because after I'm done doing the spell and eating and stuff like that, I feel like it's the best time to pick up on stuff when you meditate, like maybe, I'm very, spiritually sensitive, so I pick up on a lot, so, after you're done doing your, so you ground first so you can get your energy and you're all good, and then you do your spell casting, and then you may feel a little drained, so then you eat, and then you meditate to see, so there's a reason why I do it like this. But like I said, it varies. It may be hard for you to meditate at first. There's different methods on doing this, but this is just what I do after I'm done with my cakes and ale. And then after you're done meditating, however long you decide to do, this is when you decide to dismiss things. So I like to do it exactly backwards from how I did them. So I like to do, I dismiss my guardians and guides, then I dismiss the elements, then I dismiss spirit, I dismiss the god and goddess, and then I close the circle. Now, when you close the circle, I will say that you do it when you feel ready to, and make sure you dismiss the elements and that type of thing, and you thank and say farewell to the quarters, the gods and goddesses, and all the people you asked to watch and be a part of your ritual, that type of thing. Definitely make sure when you're completely done closing the circle that what you do is make sure you record your results and what you did, because believe it or not, it's actually so helpful to refer back to for when you're doing future rituals, especially if you're new to it and you're still trying to get the gist of it, just keep recording your results. Plus, it's nice to keep in your book as well, see how you grow within things. But that is basically how to perform a successful ritual. Now, again, there's different things, like altars and pictures. Like, if you have any specific questions about this, feel free to leave them below. I know I didn't explain probably the best way I could, but this was just my basic steps on how I perform a ritual. So, again, feel free to leave me questions and that type of thing. I will do my best to answer them. And if you have like specific questions about like how to do the actual steps, like how to meditate or cast a circle or how to meditate, like if it's anything like that, I would probably have to do a separate video for those, because those are in-depth questions. So that's why I didn't explain them like completely, because of that reason. It would be like a 40-minute video or something like that. Like, I don't even know how long it would take to do all that. But those were the basic steps. Thank you guys for watching, and blessed be and love and light.